the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Wilton, joined by Sergeant Wilton. Glenn, how are you?
I'm good.
You know, living here in Southern California, I turn to everything. The Farmer's Almanac. I'll look at like every single weather prediction thing that I can in order to see what the weather might be like during the winter, because you and I love cold weather and we love the snow and we love the rain, and everything said like this is going to be the driest winter that you have ever experienced. And we have had the most insane weather that we have had I can't even remember having rain in the way that we did. And it wasn't just rain, it was the wind that just, drew everything down. People living in like Florida are probably laughing at me explaining that, but it's just not something that we're used to, and nor are our cities and our grounds. We're not used to it. We had every single street sign that lines the main road outside of our dirt roads was completely knocked down and in trenches that were like, gosh, some of them were 10 feet wide by maybe 6 feet deep. We haven't seen anything like that.
No, and it's actually really interesting because I remember, was it 2 years ago now, we had the hurricane that came through and everyone was getting paranoid over that. And it's something we've never had to experience before. And that wasn't even near as bad as what this was. And it's really crazy to think about. I mean, we got over 15 inches of rain over the last 2 weeks. For us, that's unheard of. That's what we get in like a 2-year period.
Yeah. Now the real question is, what did Newsom do with it all?
Yeah, exactly. Probably pushed it out to the ocean.
Yeah, probably. So I wanted to talk about something that I haven't heard anybody else talk about. And it's actually a question of what happens when the job stops being something that you do and it starts being something that owns you. And this is especially true for first responders.
It's when you are self-identifying as your job, I think we start running into the problem of, you're going to work every day. You're even on your off days, you're still going to work, whether it's to work on cases, whether it's to work out, just to go be around your partners. You don't have anything on the outside to be able to do.
I'm going to profile an officer. Clint, you're going to know instantly who I'm talking about. And I'm going to shed some light on the profile of this officer so that you can see what it looks like when the job starts winning. So said officer has some difficulties with family health issues at home. He is doing everything he can to sign up for every single overtime shift, to be a part of everything that makes him kind of in the it crowd, and getting all of the new gear, showcasing all of his new purchases from working all of that overtime, and always linking it back so people know in the caption that I have this because I worked overtime as a police officer. And he is also incredibly bitter, incredibly sensitive, not the type of person that you can go to and correct for anything. And so in my opinion, it's important to be able to highlight this type of personality so that you can see that that person wants to spend more time at work than he does at home. And to me, that's indicative of the fact that his job has started to win.
Yeah, I think when that's all you ever identify as, it's you start having that unhealthy relationship with your work, and instead of having that healthy relationship with your family. Because then, you see the highlighting of the family posts and trying to build that up. But when you see more posts about work than you do about family, that's kind of a whole other problem. I mean, it's one thing if, okay, I'm a police officer and I'm going on and this is what I do, and I'm sharing, like I would say, like Mike the cop, sharing that kind of knowledge and know-how of being a police officer. That's what he did. But this is a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, and that's not to say that there isn't other things there, right? Trauma, most certainly, there's a whole heck of a lot that's there. Maybe it has something to do with the health concerns at home, I'm not sure, but it's important to understand that this isn't something that just happens overnight. I don't think that there isn't a single moment where the job technically wins. I think it's something that very slowly and through missed moments and constant availability to work instead of your family, or emotional depletion, and being that I think having the quiet belief that everything else can wait is where those small things start to build up to where they aggregate over time.
Yeah, I think you you start building up those barriers between your work life and your personal life, and you don't feel comfortable being outside of your work environment. And I think that's the biggest problem, is you're only comfortable when you're working.
I'm going to pull the RNC campaign slang, and we heard constantly during the campaigns, are you better off than you were 4 years ago, right? And I think that something that we could take from that is to be able to just recognize that there are some early signs and there's also some kind of late signs, and to ask ourselves, is this job taking more than it gives?
And that's the biggest statement right there, is the job taking more than it gives. And the reason being is because if you're giving, and I try saying this to my guys all the time, we're just a number. They can replace us at the blink of an eye, no matter. It's a business, and that's where I think we fail to recognize and realize that is we're replaceable. Every single one of us is replaceable. So when you start identifying as this is who I am, you will be replaced once you're gone.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There's a psychological concept called role enmeshment, and this happens when your professional identity becomes so intertwined with that personal identity that your boundaries totally disappear. And for first responders, this could show up as things like feeling guilty when you're not working, or defining your self-worth by productivity or even your sacrifice. I think too, prioritizing your duty over your health and relationships, we see that constantly. Struggling to disengage mentally from the job, and then believing that no one else can do it like I can.
And that is, I want to say that the last statement you said is no one else can do it like I can. That is something that I think all of us are guilty of, because we're proven time and time again. They're not going to, whoever takes over the position after you is not going to do it the same as you would. They could be better. They could be worse. You just never know.
I know somebody who's been screwed over by work so much that he has been on vacation for the last 2 weeks. He got back from the new year and he was supposed to go back to work on a Monday, and he didn't feel good on Sunday. So I had asked, hey, are you still going back to work tomorrow? And he's like, no, I'm going to call out sick. And there's something crazy that happens when work no longer comes before everything else.
Yeah, I think that's where, when we start recognizing that and identifying that it's a job. It's a career. It's a job. It's when you're there, you pour in to give your all, of course, but don't let it run your life.
Yeah, what's funny is we just had the holidays, and I'm thinking about this in the police Facebook group, the police wives Facebook groups that I see, the conversation that this could also be a good indicator of whether or not your job is starting to win is your spouse only looking for law enforcement gifts to give you for your birthday or for holidays, or are there other interests that you have that they might be able to shop for?
Yeah, I think that's especially when we define that with our spouses, within ourselves. If you're always looking for that new piece of equipment, that new gear, that thin blue line flag, whatever it may be, then we might have an unhealthy relationship with our job.
Yeah, and sometimes loved ones only get what's left over, and the job takes its share, and your relationships could be running on leftovers. And I think that's a great way to be able to tell whether or not this is something that might need some work.
Yeah, I think when we recognize that and we start putting more work and involvement into our families, into ourselves, to be able to enrich our lives on a bigger scale compared to just doing it at work, you're going to almost have this emotional shift to where you're able to have a healthier work-life balance and be able to move above just being a police officer.
There are a lot of ways to be able to take some ground back, and I think that awareness really interrupts autopilot. So if you are able to name the shift before things start to collapse, that is definitely information that you can work off of. And select non-negotiable personal boundaries. So protect your time, your health, your connection, like you protect your partners.
Yeah, when you draw those boundary lines, we draw that invisible line in the sand when we're out in the field. We need to draw that in our personal lives as well, to say, hey, you can come up to that point, but as soon as you cross it, you're done.
I think too, it is so important to just rebuild your identity outside of your job and expand who you are beyond your role. I'm thinking about an officer who has decided that he wanted to become an author, and he's like going all in with it, asking me questions about creating like a promotion group, and he built a website, and he is reaching out to publishers, and he finished his cover. He wrote his book in like 2 months. Like, he's going all in with this, and it makes me so happy to see him so excited about something that has nothing to do with work, although the topic of his book is all like experiences with what he did for work.
Yeah, and it's being able to find those outlets, find those avenues to be able to lean upon, to where you're not so reliant on someone else. You're not working for someone else. You can create that happiness on your own.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.